Hello, welcome back to the Daisy Dates podcast. I'm Daisy and we discuss all things dating, relationships, mindset, heartbreak, dating apps and everything that comes in between, all of that to do with love. Today, I'm joined with Pippa, a dating and relationship coach for high-achieving women who want to attract a loving and healthy relationship. And I'm so excited that we've got her on because her content just absolutely hits, and I've been following her for a little while now, so I'm very excited. Pippa, welcome.
Thank you so much. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. I think we're going to really unravel a lot of lessons today. I normally start with like a this or that game, but I'm changing it up a little bit for this season. I'm just going to ask you 3 kind of quick fire questions, if that's okay with you. So the first one is, before we get into everything, and I'm sure everything will unravel a little bit more into the conversation, but what advice do you wish you could give to yourself when dating years ago?
I think the best piece of advice I could have given myself, and for my experience in particular, was just know your worth, basically. Know that you deserve more. Know that you can ask for more. Know that you're lovable, and everything will unfold from there.
I love that. What's a mistake that you used to make when dating?
Choosing the wrong guys all the time.
All the time. We'll get into that.
Yeah, I'm trying to give you quick answers.
3 words to describe your current relationship.
Okay, so safe, adventure, and I think expansive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Elaborate on that.
So I think safe is just like the first word that comes to mind, because I'm with someone now where we've gone through a lot. We've been together over 5 years. We've been long distance. We've went through the pandemic. We've lived with each other's family members. We've just finished building works. We've gone through a lot together, and it feels like he very much is the calm within all of that. So it always feels very safe and secure. And also, in who he is very protective, and it always makes me feel like someone's got my back and is looking out for me. Adventure, I just think probably my favorite thing about being in love and being in an amazing relationship is that you get to enjoy all of life, but you have someone doing the ride with you. So you have someone like your partner in crime on this adventure with you. So you have your goals, he has his goals, and you work out how you're gonna, I don't know, mesh those together to create like an incredible life for yourselves. And the final one, expansive, I think that comes from, I did so much work on myself to get into a relationship personally. And then obviously now with my clients, I do so much work with them when they're single and they're looking for love. But there's something about being in, again, a safe relationship with a healthy partner where you kind of learn so much more about yourself. You learn so much more about your insecurities, but the things that you love, the things that you're interested in. When I was dating and having casual relationships, there was never any space to expand who I was as a person, because I was so busy trying to chase or get validation or be wanted, that I didn't have time to really sit in it and learn more about myself. Whereas in a healthy relationship, there's so much healing that you can do because you learn and unpack so many parts of yourselves. So that's why I say expansive.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. I remember when I was dating so much, and there were moments where, I'd get the job I really wanted, or something great would happen, and I'd celebrate these small wins in life. And I remember always thinking like, when will the day come when I'll get to celebrate that with someone? Yeah. And I always celebrate like enjoying every moment of being single, but when you can just have that person to celebrate with, that it isn't your family or your friends, it's just that person, it does feel really, really nice. And I think expansive was such a great roundup. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. Like, there's been so much just in 8 months of being with my current partner where I'm like, oh, I'm actually a really calm person in relationships. I didn't know that because I've always been so chaotic in a way because I've always been so anxious that they're just like going to leave me that day or never going to hear from them, but I just don't get that anymore. So I love that. That's a good word. I'm going to take that forward. So let's talk about 2024 and dating.
Yes.
How do you begin when you get a new client? Where do you begin when it comes to helping someone find love? Like, this is such a broad topic and everyone's different. Everyone's looking for different things as well. Where do you even start?
So I always start with, what do you want? And like, what do you want from a relationship? How do you want to feel in the relationship? What are your values in a relationship? Because I think having a clear vision, especially in 2024, because I know there's a lot of like negativity around the dating scene and there's a lot of fatigue around dating apps and things like that. I think if you've got a clear vision and you know why you are, putting yourself out there, why you are doing the inner work, why you are, sometimes going on dates that don't go exactly how you have planned, and you can have that clear vision of where you're going, it changes how you show up in those experiences, because you're like, okay, this guy wasn't the one, but I've got my vision and I'm going to keep going because I've got that clarity. So I always start with, what do you want? And then after we know what they want, it's like, what's stopping you? So what's the challenge? What's your pattern been? I think dating patterns are really important. So for example, I've mentioned a little bit about mine. I chased unavailable men. I found that was a crazy spark. It was the classic kind of anxious and avoidant attachment style working together, where I was very anxious and I wanted love and I wanted to be obsessed with someone and I wanted to fight for it, because I genuinely thought that meant that it was the most meaningful, most passionate relationship. And they didn't want that, and they were quite emotionally unavailable, and that was my pattern. And I didn't even think I didn't realize I was doing it for a very long time, like 3 or 4 years. I had no idea I was doing it. So then we've got to understand, okay, what are the mistakes that we keep making? And sometimes those mistakes are our behaviors, but also sometimes the challenges that we're facing is our own internal dialogue and our own beliefs on ourselves and also on the dating world. So a belief on ourselves might be something along the lines of, I'm not good enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not interesting enough, I'm too old. It could be anything like that. Or a belief on the dating sphere or relationships could be, relationships are hard. Dating is, relentless, beliefs like that all the good men are gone. And so you've got to work on those mindset parts as well as your behavior, because they kind of work together, to be honest. The better your mindset is, the stronger your beliefs and thoughts are about yourself and dating and love. That shifts your behavior. And then the more of your behavior you kind of embody, but also practice dating or practice pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, the more you learn to kind of have new beliefs too. So they work in tandem.
Yeah, there's a common narrative, isn't it? I mean, I'm seeing the word trash a lot, which I absolutely hate. Like, men are trash, like on social media. And I do hate that because it's so rubbish. Because, generally as well, we can meet not very nice people, but also we might have been triggering them to not be their best self as well. So, like, it doesn't necessarily mean, I can look back now at a lot of exes and be like, I don't think they're a bad person, and one day they'll probably make a good partner, but just at the time what we were doing to each other, it just weren't good. So rewiring that narrative, I think, is really important, isn't it? Because there was a time I was a little bit like that. I didn't openly talk like that online, but in friendship groups I'd be like, oh, they did this again. Of course they did. It's what men do. And actually I was then just attracting more of those men rather than, I was ignoring the good, safe, sensitive, kind, emotionally available men that wanted relationships. I would go on a date and a man would say they're looking for a relationship and I'd be like, oh my God, why has he told me that on a first date? And I wasn't appreciating that. And that drastically changed for me in the last few years when I realised that was a good thing, because I was looking for that too. So how can you rewire those thoughts, like to date more positively?
Well, I think the first thing is awareness. So like, men is trash is such a common one. And it's such a, if you're looking for love, you need to stop saying that. I know it's fun sometimes with the girlfriends to just like bash men. We've all done it, myself included. But the truth is, when you're putting that out to the world, like, and you're saying that to yourself, everything you say, you're telling to yourself as well as you're saying to someone else. And the more you tell yourself that, I mean, what is the result of telling someone that men are trash? Okay, well, there's kind of two options. One, you're going to just lower your standards completely because all men are trash, so why would you bother expecting more? Or two, you're going to avoid dating because why would you want to date if all men are trash? And you kind of do it on a subconscious like playing field. You might not even realize you're doing it, but with the belief side of things, that's why the awareness is so important. So one of the exercises I like to do on like masterclasses I run or with clients is, well, there's kind of two things that you can do. So one of them is like, what is your instant reaction when I say like dating is? Like, what is the first word you think of? Or men are, like, or men think I am. And it's like, the instant reaction is what your kind of inner thought is, your inner belief. So for example, when I do this, in a masterclass, people might say, dating is hard, dating is stressful, men think I'm too much, all of these beliefs. So we've got to become really aware of it. Then we have to be really self-compassionate because we cannot change beliefs by being more horrible to ourselves, because often these beliefs, they're negative beliefs. And, I always say to my clients, like, they're like, no, but it's just true. And it's like, there could be truth in some of the beliefs you hold. It's like a Venn diagram. If you imagine, like, there's a fact and then there's fiction, and then in between there is the belief part. Like, there is some of it that might be true, okay? Dating might be slightly harder than it was 80 years ago, okay? That could be true. But also, there's loads of cases out there right now where people have met people, like 50% of people meet their partner on apps. So clearly it's not all bad. So it's kind of choosing what you want to believe. And so that's how we start to challenge the beliefs. So we're compassionate, we understand that it's there, we don't blame ourselves for it, but we have to start, challenging that narrative. So I used to have such a strong narrative that I never meet anyone I like, or the people I like don't like me back. And it was like, okay, or like no one ever likes me enough to commit. And then I remember looking back at sort of my dating history, and I was like, well, there was this guy that really liked me and wanted something. There was this guy, but I just didn't want them because I was very much in that headspace of chasing people who were unavailable. But it's like that challenging of it. Okay, well, it's not true because there were people who did like me. And then you've got to start choosing a kind of a better belief. So a really common one, and one that, really I had for a long time, was I'm never going to meet someone. I just had that. I kept telling myself that. And that's, a really harsh thing to say. I mean, a good rule of thumb is, would you say it to your best friend? If your friend was single and she was dating and she was really struggling to meet someone, but she wanted to, would you ever just say, you know what, babe, you're never going to meet someone? You would never say that. You would say, you just got to keep going for it. There's someone out there for you. Those are the thoughts that we need to start telling ourselves. And so with that one, I changed it to like, it only has to happen once. I remember saying to myself, like, I only have to meet this person once and I could be with them for the rest of my life. And I found that a really optimistic replacement and something that I could believe because it's true. It did only have to happen once. And so that was a really good replacement for that thought that I'm never going to meet someone. So to recap quickly, it's the awareness, compassion, challenge it, and then choosing another belief.
Yeah, to fully rewire those thoughts. It's so relatable. I've literally gone through all of those stages with you, and I'm like, I was like that.
I know.
And I've looked back and I'm like, I met this really kind guy. I mean, this is like 12 years ago, but he like booked Wimbledon tickets for the second date. And I remember being like, oh, too much. Why has he done that? And now I'm like, that was so lovely. And I really was not kind about that. And it's so weird when you are on the other side, when you look back for that. A little bit earlier, you mentioned about chasing this spark.
Yes.
What is your advice on this spark that everyone seems to talk about? So I think to separate it, chemistry is obviously like the getting on with each other and kind of understanding each other and having a vibe with each other, but then people talk about this spark.
Yeah.
Is it there? Does it exist? What is it?
So, first of all, it's completely valid to want to have chemistry and to want to have attraction to the people that we're with. You know, that's healthy, that's normal, that's natural. Where it can become an unhealthy dynamic is when we're not actually attracted to that person because, our energies align, but we're attracted to that person because a pattern from as young as our childhood is being activated. So, for example, a classic one is, this one I described of really being obsessed with, I have one person in particular who for 3 years I was obsessed. I thought that we had the most incredible connection, chemistry, nothing would ever rival it. But actually, it was just that every time I saw him, it was like a really fun occasion, a night out, a holiday, and then it felt like it was going somewhere, and then I wouldn't hear from him, and then it would all go. But that time was so special, and what I was chasing there was validation. And we call this like the anxious and avoidant trap in attachment styles, and this is the spark that we have to watch out for. It's the feeling of it's from learning that in order to be loved and in order to feel loved, we have to chase it. So we have to win it over. We have to be validated for it. We have to earn it. So when we feel that way, we get these little nuggets of love that we've earned, and then they come away with again. And it's triggered us again to be like, okay, we need to go and earn that love again. And that's the spark that's really dangerous. So you should feel attraction. And how can you know the difference? I think this almost takes being a little bit of a bit logical. Being able to take a bird's eye view on the person you're dating. It's like, is this actually healthy? If my friend was having this relationship, is it healthy? Would I think that there was no one out there for her apart from this guy? And, how are they actually treating me? Is the baseline of like respect, consistency, effort, are they there? And if they're not there, then it's a good chance that it's just a spark that you're chasing and just this moment of passion. And we kind of learn that actually, we basically, our brain learns that the moments that we do get that bit of attention, that's love. And we get very almost addicted to that feeling of having that love back. And that's the spark. Whereas if you know that someone's treating you well, putting in effort, you can kind of bird's eye view it. You can see, oh, look, they planned a date. They're messaging me consistently. They're asking me questions about my inner world and my personal life, and they're genuinely interested. And you also are really attracted to them. That's great. That's perfect. I was very attracted to my partner when I met him. It wasn't that there was no chemistry or there was no, I thought he was so fit. I was like, I loved it. But there was also this sort of like baseline of effort and consistency from him. And then within myself, there was also a very strong sense of, I will walk away if this isn't what I want. Like I had really learned that I was willing to walk away from a relationship that wasn't going to be, a serious relationship. I didn't want a casual relationship. And that gave me the confidence to really enjoy the relationship we were building, because I had the strength of knowing that I would walk away if it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it? And that comes from a place of like building good self-esteem, doesn't it? Which I know is like number one when you get a client as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like self-esteem, I always refer to it as self-worth, because I feel like self-worth is the knowing you deserve love without needing to be any different, in the sense that you don't need to look a different way, you don't need to be funnier, you don't need to be anything else. Like I genuinely believe that every single person on this planet is worth the same amount. And you can see that like a baby, when they're born, they don't question whether they deserve to be fed or loved. They just know that they deserve to be loved. It's survival. And so they cry and they demand that love. And we all have that within us, and we all deserve that love. And when we know that we are enough as we are. And, by the way, I don't feel like I should have to caveat this, but I'm going to. Obviously, that doesn't mean you can't work on yourself, okay? I actually think the best way to work on yourself is from a place of, loving yourself, but also recognizing that you do have flaws. I don't sit here and think, wow, I'm just so perfect, I just think I'm still lovable, even though I have my flaws, and I'm going to work on those regardless. But from that place, you don't settle. You don't allow yourself to be treated badly. You have the confidence to walk away when things are not healthy. You have the confidence to walk away when things aren't available. And I think also when you build that self-worth and you also build self-trust. And I think that's really important in dating. That you can handle what comes, like the trust that if you do attract someone who isn't a good partner, you can trust yourself to walk away. Or if you do have a challenge with your partner down the line, you can trust yourself to approach that, and be open in your communication. Like I think self-worth, the more self-worth you have, the more trust you have, which means it's easier to face the fears that you have in dating, because so much of the challenge with finding love is the fears that you hold. So the fear of rejection, the fear of being hurt again, the fear of being cheated on, the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, the fear of success even. Okay, what if I do get this amazing relationship and I mess it up, or it goes wrong and I'm alone again? So self-worth helps with all of those things.
Yeah, you're so right. Because when I look back at some guys I've dated, I've I've changed myself in terms of, I've always been myself personality-wise, but like look-wise, I'd have a guy coming over, spending a weekend or whatever. So I'd like fake tan, I'd do my hair, I'd make sure that I'd had my hair done, like my roots done, and I'd make sure that I had maybe new underwear and new clothes and new everything. Then when I met my now partner, I never felt like I needed to do that, which was a moment I was like, oh, why am I not obsessed with this person?
Yeah.
Why do I not need to go out and feel like I want to buy underwear? Does that mean that I'm not feeling it? And actually it wasn't. It was just because no matter what, he just always was like, you look amazing. And it was all just genuine all of the time. And
Yeah.
you spoke about flaws, and it's so cute because when you actually do find a great partner, you love each other's flaws. So like my partner is awful timekeeper. He's someone that will like cook dinner and everything will be ready at different times. And now like I think it's like really cute that but I used to be like, oh, that's so annoying. But that's when like I get really stressed about time. I'm a really timely person, and he actually really enjoys that about me. He doesn't get annoyed that I get really stressed about time anymore. And I think that's where like love really happens, when you just allow each other to be, and you realize that you don't have to actually change yourself when the person is right or healthy for you. Because I didn't do all that. I think 2 months in, maybe even less, he sat with me for like 3 nights in A&E, and hair scraped back, no makeup. I was in so much pain. I couldn't care how I looked, and it didn't matter because it was with him.
Yeah, honestly, it's those moments that I feel like just change everything. I always think that when I think about my partner, I'm like, the moment that I was like, oh, I know that he's like, and actually, I think I had it before that, but this was the really solidifying moment. It was probably a year and a half into our relationship. And it was actually, when it was 2 years into our relationship, it was COVID. And I had just honestly had the biggest panic attack in the night that I'd got COVID. Don't know why I was so worried, but it was like right at the beginning when it was really scary. And I thought if I fell asleep, I was going to stop breathing. And when you get in your head about your breathing patterns, and I
Yeah.
was saying to him, and it was a Sunday, and we'd actually drunk quite a lot the night before, so we're both a little bit hungover and tired, and we both wanted to sleep. And I said, you have to watch me sleep because I'm so scared I'm going to stop breathing. But I just, honestly, I was having a panic attack. And I fell asleep anyway. I was fine. I woke up at like 12 or whatever. We'd gone to bed at like 9:30, 10, really early because we were tired. And he was just sitting there with like the lights on, watching me. And I was like, oh my God, you actually were like, listen to me and made sure I didn't die. And I remember thinking, wow, like someone's willing to just sit there. And it's so silly because it was like a year and a half, 2 years into a relationship. But I wasn't on death's doorstep. I had just really worked myself up in my head that there was going to be something wrong, and that was still enough. And I always say to him, like, that's why I feel so safe. You've got someone who's going to do that and be there and be consistent and, look out for you. And it's such a great feeling. but yes, and I totally feel like, and the same thing about, what we were saying is, I also feel like the people who really love you, they don't need you to always be looking your 100% best or acting your 100% best. And actually, a big thing for me, so you can't see it on this video, but I was born with a birthmark on my face, and I've always been quite insecure about it. A big shift that happened for me was before, when I was dating, like the first thing I'd do is make sure that I'd covered my birthmark. Like, if a guy was waking up next to me, blah, 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 like I would be really nervous about showing it. With my partner, even from the very beginning, I never even thought about it. I never even tried. And it was very much a me thing, actually. Like, it was him as well. Like, he just didn't care. But it was me who said, actually, you know what, like, that's still lovable. Yeah. And, I still deserve, it's an imperfection, a facial imperfection. Yeah, sure, it's not ideal. I don't love it. If I could not have it, I probably would opt for that. But it is who I am, and I accept that. And the person I'm with has got to accept that too. And I feel like that had never happened before this partner. But it was very much like, people react to how you feel about yourself. So it was led by me. It was me being okay with it, which then meant it didn't even cross his mind.
That's amazing, isn't it? That shift when it happens like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Online, you talk a lot about the masculine, feminine. This is such a broad topic. I think it's a little bit complex. A lot of different accounts have different definitions of, the feminine and the masculine. And obviously, I'm sure most people listening probably know that the feminine doesn't mean being a woman. It's like the different energies that you put out there. What's your definition? Because I know that you have this really great post about fire and water. Can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so I think what's really important with the feminine masculine dynamics is men, women, regardless of your, gender, your sexual orientation, this energy is a dynamic that lives within all of us. So I have masculine energy, I have feminine energy, and the idea is that, so the masculine energy, a healthy masculine energy, is more of the doing energy. It's giving, it's got more structure, it's more strategic, it's more logical. The feminine energy is more of a being energy, it's more nurturing, it's more emotional, it's more, it's softer. And I think these energies are really important in dating. So it depends also what you want, what you find attractive in a partner too. But for me, I always found like the masculine qualities quite attractive. Like, I love like rugby players and things like that. I'm like, yes, get me a Viking. And I always found that quite attractive. And, I think that played out in the kind of relationship I formed with my partner. He's quite in his healthy masculine. In the dating world, he really led on the dates. But what I like to also kind of talk about, and it's the masculine and feminine, when they're together, when they're polarized, that's supposed to create the attraction and the spark and the chemistry. But what I like to think about as well is how those dynamics play out within us when we're dating. So it's all very well wanting to be soft and emotional and vulnerable, these incredible feminine qualities, so that you attract in this, really masculine man who just wants to like provide for you and protect you and all of those things. That's really all good and well. But the truth is, the only way that we can be that water energy, so that feminine, fluid, being energy, is when we have standards and boundaries, which is a masculine energy within us. It's the fire. It's the ability to walk away, like I said earlier, the ability to walk away from someone if they're not going to treat you the way you want to be treated. When you've got the fire energy, it creates like a safe container for you to then soften and be vulnerable and be open and, receive as well, like allow someone to take you out for dates, plan dates, all of those things. But you need, in my opinion, you need to have your masculine working with you in the dating world too, because you need to be able to say no and think about things logically. Like I said earlier, like sometimes you can't always just be thinking about your, emotional side. You've got to think, okay, logically, is this person, consistent? Is this person someone who's going to be a good partner, especially like if you think about being with someone for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years and having a family with them, you do have to be a little bit logical, so yes, that's how I see them. I do think it's important as well to, like, I think that sometimes, and this is a mistake I've made, so I say this like vulnerably, is when I first was really getting into masculine and feminine dynamics, I would maybe use them in a way to make myself feel like not enough, in the sense that I would say, oh, I need to be more feminine, I need to be more, fluid and more magnetic and more in my body and da 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 da. And actually, you've got to just be mindful not to use these tools as a way to kind of punish yourself or to make yourself feel bad about yourself, but rather as like, okay, I see that I'm being like really, I'm really burnt out. Okay, what would my feminine side do? Well, she would rest and she'd relax and she'd do something that makes her feel really, special or loved or whatever. So making sure that we don't use these as a way to kind of, I think I see that sometimes when high achieving women in particular who, if they're working in high powered corporate jobs, typically that is a more masculine dynamic. I don't want them to suddenly be like, I'm too masculine, I'm too, you are who you are. If you just need to know that you can tap into that other side of you as well. So don't use it as a way to be like, I'm too masculine, I'm not in my body enough, I'm not fluid enough, I'm not being enough. You are enough, but just allow it to be like, okay, how can I switch off at the end of the day from my masculine energy and tap into my feminine? So use it as a way to expand yourself rather than be unkind to yourself. I think that's an important point.
I think that's really good advice, because I remember thinking when I was struggling dating, it's because I'm too masculine. Like, they don't like that I'm strong and go after my career, and I'm always at work, and I'm like quite tough in that way. But then I'm so like really in other ways like so girly, and I want to be soft. I just don't think anyone like allowed me to be that. So I'm quite conscious now in my relationship to, if I'm getting loads of heavy bags out, I let him do it because he actually wants to. And sometimes he's like, do you want me to hold your bag? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And he's like, no, let me hold your bag. And now I used to be like, no, I'm an independent woman, I can do it. And now I'm like, I don't need to be like that. Like, yes, you can hold my bag, thank you.
No, I never carry the suitcase. I honestly, one time I went down we've got so many stairs in our flat, and I went down the stairs and he wasn't even coming away with me, and my bag was still upstairs, and I was like, where's my bag? Like, I left it. But he was like, I have a sore back. I was like, okay, fine, I'll go. I went and got it. But I was like, I was so used to just,
Oh, I love that.
And I think, but you also like, it's what you want to do. Like some people will want to be like, it's when you're doing it from a place of like, I have to be independent, I can't rely on someone else, I have to be in my masculine to protect myself, to shield myself from any harm. That's when it can be like a really good idea to look at, okay, where is that coming from? What's stopping me from softening? What's stopping me from receiving? What am I scared of?
Yeah, that was actually in an episode with a dating therapist that I had in season 2, and she told me like my hyper independence was like stopping me meeting people, and I was very single at the time, and it was so true. I was like, I almost didn't want anyone to come in because I was like, they'll destroy my independence. That's such a weird concept, but I've since like looked into why that is. I've kind of spoken about it a little bit on a previous episode on my own, because it was so weird. I was just like deterring everyone, like purpose.
And if you think about it, like an exercise I like to say to my clients too, just for the perspective piece, is imagine you met a man and he just didn't, like, he was so independent, he didn't want you to ever make him dinner, he didn't want you to ever like, rub his shoulders or whatever it is, like you'd be like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, I'm trying to give love, and I think it's always, I always like to say like, well, like, would you want to meet you, like a male version of you? When you, and then back to the beliefs thing, when I see people saying like men are trash, like, would you want to be with a guy who goes around talking about how women are trash? It's like, no. So I think
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
a
good.
really good point to flip
Yeah.
that. Yeah, for sure. And I know that some people, I know that my boyfriend did at first when I used to talk to him about the femme masculine thing. He struggled with the femme masculine. Like he was a bit like, what? So are you saying that I'm really feminine? I'm like, no, you've got lovely traits in terms of, the empathetic and the more
Yeah.
sensitive, and that's a good thing. And he really didn't like he didn't get that, like the feminine part of it, not meaning that you're a woman because I'm saying
Yeah.
it's feminine. So we changed it into more like animals, like be more lion when we wanted to be more in the mass. Do you know what I mean? So we did like
Yes, I
lion and
love that.
tiger. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the words just weren't working. So I'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, well, there's he's talking about a thing at work, maybe getting a promotion. I'm like, well, that's where you need to channel the lion, and that's how we
Yeah.
talk about it now.
Yeah, I love that. And that's not dissimilar to what like fire and water. Like
Mm,
I need to be in my water or I need to be in my fire because I think the problem is we live in a society where I think we're trying to break down the social constructs that have developed over like thousands of years, but also like to a point where it's being, you know, praised to be more masculine, or it's like it's quite like polarizing at the moment, especially with this topic coming up. And so I think it does help, yeah, to use other words.
yeah, absolutely. So then let's talk about you a little bit in the sense of I think everyone's just not knowing. You mentioned it earlier in 2024 with how the dating kind of landscape has changed.
Yeah.
Everyone's so lost on where to go to find a
Yeah.
date or how to date or are dating apps still a good thing? So where did you find your partner? Was it an in real life thing? Did you hang out at certain places?
Yeah, so really interesting conversation. So I moved to New York um, after I left university. I worked for a bit in London, and then I chose to do a sort of internship program in New York. And he was doing the same internship program, not working in the same business, but basically you were all put in different companies, but it was the same program. So we had mixes, we all kind of lived in the same apartment blocks, and then over time, like we just kind of we got to know each other in the sense that we would like wave at each other, say hi. I always thought he was good looking. I didn't like, I didn't have that much expectation, but I remember like walking past him and just like waving at him on the way to the gym, and like I was quite like just open with him. And then one night we were at so New York. We were at a white party in Manhattan, in the financial district, which I've always loved to say because it makes us sound so glamorous. And then that night we basically ended up exchanging numbers, kissing. And then the following Friday we went on a date, and then we just consistently started dating from there. And our dating was so much fun because, he asked me on a date, and then I honestly was still in the headspace of like, I'm not going to hear from him. It's not going to happen. And he called me on the Wednesday before the date on the Friday.
Wow.
I was thinking, what the hell? Like, who calls? Like, this is
Yeah.
wild. And he called me, and I wasn't going to answer it because I was so scared. And my friend was like, pick up the phone, Pippa, like, don't be ridiculous. And I picked it up, and he was like, oh, so I've booked comedy tickets for Friday, but I just wanted to make sure that that's fine with you. And
Oh.
I was like, oh my God, people do this? This is so wild. We're not splitting drinks at the pub? Like, this is crazy. And then we just had the most amazing kind of dating experience after that. Like, actually, to be fair, the whole dating, I actually found dating in New York, I think because of the work I'd done before I moved there and the shift in identity I could have once I was there because I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
I found that there was so many, like I went on so many better dates than I ever did in London.
Wow.
Um, I was on dating apps for like 4 years, and I went on one date from them, okay? But I did them so wrong. And I honestly, like, I don't want anyone to take away from this that I don't think dating apps are good. I think they're amazing. My sister met her partner on a dating app. I've got a bunch of close friends who did too. Most of my clients have gone on to meet their partners on dating apps. Like, it's the number one way my clients have met people. And I think they're incredible. So you just got to know how to use them, and you've got to, and also it's worth saying, when I met my partner in person, I was on dating apps as well. Like, it wasn't like I was off them or I was, looking for guys there and like open to going on dates on them too. It just so happened that I met someone in person. So I guess what would my advice be? My advice would be stay on dating apps, enjoy them, use them when you're feeling good. Don't use them on a Sunday when you're feeling lonely and hungover because you've gone out with your friends the night before and you're like, miserable. I would use them when you're feeling good, when you're feeling excited, when you're connected to that vision, in a playful way. Like, don't put so much pressure on them because you can meet someone in real life too. Now, when it comes to real life, I think it's all about creating opportunities. So me moving to New York was pivotal because I had this whole new social circle. I had this I could have a whole new identity as well. Like, I could release some of the last beliefs that I had in London, and the kind of bad experiences I'd had dating in London. So that really helps. So create that opportunities, but you do not need to move away, because this is another big thing that I hear. So I often hear women say, the problem is, I had someone say she lived in Amsterdam. The problem is it's the men in Amsterdam. And I've had someone say, oh, the problem is it's the men in this small town in Ireland she was in. And I had someone comment on a video saying, the problem is it's where I live. And it's like, okay, are you going to move? No? Then stop telling yourself that, okay? Yeah. You've got to work with what you've got, but you can create new opportunities. And I think had I not met my partner there, and I stayed in London, I think even things like moving to a different part of the city you're living in, or going to a bar you've never been to before, joining a class, joining a new gym, so many different opportunities. Even if you make new girlfriends, their brother could be the one. So I feel like approaching life with a yes energy naturally starts to attract more potential guys in. One of my really good friends is a really good example of this, and she was single for quite a long time, probably like 4 or 5 years in London, and she actually met her out when I was living in New York, and she met someone recently and now they're in an amazing relationship. But it was a friend had come into town and invited her to this night, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to go. It was like some sort of like exhibition type thing, and she was really tired, and anyway, in the end of it she said yes. And this is how she met him. She was there, it was a friend of this other guy's, and then basically it just goes to show putting yourself in different environments whilst also having the apps as an amazing tool, remembering that all those people on the app are existing in real life too. So I think that that's really important. And then I really am a strong believer in like the energy that you're giving out, because you could be going to these new places, these new bars, on dating apps, trying to meet all these new people. But if you're going in with the wrong energy, you're not going to get what you want. Remembering that you are the prize, you can attract, you're a great catch, allowing yourself to have fun, thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I met someone? Not, if I don't meet someone tonight, then clearly this doesn't work. Having that openness, that lightness, that doing things for you for fun. I think I talk about a lot. Something else that was happening in New York when I met my partner, it's so strange, but I had gone out and I love baking, and I'd gone out and bought like loads of baking equipment like the week before, and I was really focusing on just doing the things that I love for me, and like, whatever that hobby is. I think filling yourself up and then approaching life and then approaching dates. And again, let's use the perspective of, imagine a guy you want to be with. Are they going to this speed dating night being like, I'm never going to meet anyone, I've had a really crap day at work, I can't be bothered, why am I here? Like, that's not attractive. That's not going to make you look across the room and be like, that guy sulking in the corner is the one. It might be, you never know. Like, you could find each other. That could be a love story. But just thinking about that as well. So thinking about also the energy as well as, what you're actually doing.
I think that's great advice, because when you think of yourself dating, you're so right. Like the person that is playing tennis on a Monday and then meeting up for a pub quiz on a Wednesday, like the person that's got stuff about their life is exciting, and it makes you want to be a part of that. So that's so, so true. I've always asked like finale questions on my podcast, and I think so many people, we kind of touched on it when we said about the spark. So many people are confused about how it's meant to feel. I think especially if you do meet someone that's safe and and actually quite healthy. It doesn't necessarily feel how you thought it might feel. So your whole concept is like you went from single as fuck to finding Mr. Right. So my question is, how did you know he was Mr. Right? And when did you know? Was it like instant? Was it further down the line?
No, you know what? Like, I think it was that moment where he watched me breathing. But I also think, I don't think I knew immediately. Like, I think it took me some time, to be really honest, because it was very unfamiliar for me to be with someone who was communicating, to be with someone who was emotionally available and who was making an effort. I would say that the first sort of 6, 7 months, I almost felt like, okay, like I didn't know because it was my first long-term relationship. I think I was nervous. I think I still had some, reservations, but I think it was really after, and then after about 8 months, we then went to long distance. But it was this weird feeling of, it keeps getting better, it keeps getting safer, even as the years go by. Like, my partner always says to me, like, we love each other more because we gone through more, we know each other more. And I think that's how you know that someone's the one, where you're just going to keep, and you do work for it sometimes. It's not always easy. Like, life is stressful sometimes, but it's that willingness to come back and connect. And I think if you meet someone who you love and is good to you and wants to commit long term, they are the one. There's some, and there's always going to be some challenges along the road, and you do get to be attracted to them. I think it's very important. You get to be with someone that you find attractive. But it's, I do think sometimes, it's that love that's there, but also that willingness to keep committing when the going gets tough. So I think every year I feel it even more. But I think really after that sort of after the first year. And what's funny is, that's when the sort of honeymoon period starts, wearing off too. Like, they usually say it lasts from a year, 2 years. We're long distance, which usually extends it a bit because you still have the doing your own thing, then coming together for an amazing weekend. And that was so fun, so passionate. And, things are still passionate, but it's got a steadiness and a consistency and a safety that really came about as the years go on. So I don't know if that's really answered the question.
No, it has. It has, definitely. Yeah, it has. Because, and even recently when I said something to my partner, like, oh, I really felt really this is going to be really, really long term and good after Dublin. And Dublin was quite far in, well, maybe 4 or 5 months. He was like, what, you only felt it then? And I was like, well, yeah. And then I was like, well, even Christmas and New Year, I felt it then. So you do get stages where you're like, no, this is good. And I think maybe he thought that maybe he knew earlier or something, and he found that a bit jarring, that maybe he was like, oh, so you weren't sure for 5 months? And I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I just knew I was really sure, Christmas even so recently, kind of cemented it.
Yeah, to be honest, it took me about 6 months to be like, I love you. I know I love you.
Yeah, it's taken me a long time like that as well.
It took me a while. And I think that's what happens when you haven't had, a really healthy history maybe of dating men. It's the safety has to come. And then I remember when I did feel like it, I was like, right, I'm going to burst. I have to express this. And then I had one too many drinks and I expressed it. Yeah. And that was actually probably a big turning point. And he didn't say it back immediately. So we went to sleep, and then he woke me up and said it because he wanted to say it when he was sober.
Oh, he's such a cutie. I love it.
He's very cute. Unlike me, I had to get really drunk just to express myself.
Yeah.
And I'm the dating coach. No, but I think that is I think that there are stages. The saying that I have clients now who've been together with their partner, they've moved quickly, and I think that can happen too. There's not a right or wrong timeline. It's how you feel and being connected to how you feel. That's so important.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. There's been so many good nuggets in this episode. So thank you so much for your time as well. And you can follow Pippa and you can follow Daisy Dates Podcast on Instagram. You can follow me, Daisy Bell, on Instagram and TikTok as well. And the podcast is available absolutely everywhere. So wherever you're listening right now, it will be on all of the other apps should you need to know that information. Google, Amazon, Spotify, everywhere. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.